This is the head-to-head show where we cover all big college football games this weekend. This is our Week 11 recap. Let's get into it.
Okay, to start off, let's go to Ohio State versus Indiana. Ohio State was a 40-point favorite, and the over-under was 62. And the players that weren't in the game were three of our four actual running backs: Trevion Henderson, Chip Trayanum, T.C. Caffey, and also our starting cornerback, Denzel Burke. So they were both all unavailable. And at the start of kickoff, it was snowing, 36 degrees outside. This game was just a stat pattern and trying and buffing up our player stats. And we had like three, four players that had a great game. So the first player was Mike Williams. He had 15 rushes, 147 rushing yards, one touchdown in the first half, and he was on pace. He had like 10 yards per carry, and he was on pace for the school record for rushing yards in a game. And he got hurt in this like the middle of the second quarter of a foot injury. He got rolled up by an Indiana player. And the second player that had a great game was Marvin Harrison. He was like an absolute beast. He was saving Ohio State on crucial third downs and long third downs. He had 7 receptions for 135 receiving yards and one touchdown. He had some amazing acrobatic catch that went for it went like he caught like it was about a 12-yard pass, and his foot was hovering above, like his left foot was hovering right above and was like an inch above the ground. His right foot just came down and smacked into the ground, and he got us the like third and long. After that, we have Lathan Ransom, who I think is going to be a Jim Thorpe finalist, and he had a great game: 1.5 sacks, 2 tackles, one blocked punt, and wasn't even he like it hit him right in the chest. So blocked punt, so it wasn't close to being it wasn't like close to missing it. And our other player, we had Jack Sawyer. He had no sacks, and he had 1 sack this season, and he had 2 sacks this game, his career high. And with Xavier Johnson, our Swiss Army knife player, who is a former walk-on and was a 3-star on 247, he had 2 receptions, 47 yards, and one carry for 71 yards and a touchdown. Ohio State had a quick start, 28-7 at half, and Ohio State defense was smashing Indiana, 5 sacks. That's a crazy amount. Their quarterback's quick as well. He was scrambling. He wasn't having the best completion rate, but he did get a couple first downs with his feet. And but the main story of this game was Cameron Babb, a former 4-star recruit and top 100 player, had his first ever reception and touchdown after 4 ACL tears in 4 years. Um, and he broke down crying on his knees. And the final score is 56-14, Ohio State, and this definitely made me like more confident for the Michigan game and the Maryland game coming up because I was kind of freaking out. Let's move now to Washington versus Oregon. Washington leads the series against Oregon 60-48. Oregon was a 12-point favorite, and the over-under was 74. So from this game, Bo Nix was playing solid, and I still think he's one of the top five, top three Heisman contenders because he's having great touchdown interception ratio. He's like 24 to 5 interception ratio. And the ending, man, it was a really good ending. Oh, there was Bo Nix got and Oregon had the ball with about a minute left, and they're at their own 20. They got like a 30-yard gain to the 50, and then they had like an incomplete pass, and then they got another 12-yard gain. And then a huge controversial call happened where Bo Nix threw to his man who caught a 12-yard reception, then went out of bounds, which would have put Oregon into field goal range to tie it 37-37. But the refs called uh, that the wide receiver stepped out of bounds on his own and then came back in and was the first to touch it. And a lot of the Oregon fans are booing because it looked like the cornerback pushed him. I honestly thought it wasn't enough to be called as he got pushed out of bounds not on his own. I think he did it on his own, and that cost Oregon the game because Bo Nix had to just throw a Hail Mary, and he threw it short because he got pressured and had to throw on the run. So Oregon had more time of possession, more first downs, more rushing yards. Basically, almost every stat and category Oregon was winning in, but they also had more penalties. 7 penalties, 51 yards, and some penalties were crucial, and it made them fell short against Washington. Now let's move on to LSU versus Arkansas.
Okay, so the line was 6. LSU was favored by 6 in Fayetteville, where it was snowing and there was ice. They got it cleared up a little bit before the game. It was still super cold though. Um, so first off, LSU they clinched the SEC West this weekend, and they're gonna go to Atlanta for the SEC championship game because Alabama beat Ole Miss and LSU did win. They won 13-10. In the early bit of the game, there were 2 turnovers by Jaden Daniels, the LSU quarterback, that gave Arkansas a lot of life. The stadium was super hyped up. They were ready. They totally thought they were going to take down this top 10 team, but the LSU defense held them to 3 through the whole first half. LSU outscored them by 3. They scored 2 field goals, so the Arkansas defense played well. But really 2 turnovers on the LSU side of the field. They should have scored more. Arkansas should have. Jaden Daniels couldn't pass basically the whole game. He gave up, Arkansas gave up only 86 passing yards, so really not great numbers for Jaden Daniels. Arkansas just couldn't. LSU really had to run the ball because Arkansas couldn't defend it. LSU had 200 rushing yards, and their only touchdown was on the ground. Cade Fortin, the Arkansas third string quarterback, came in for Malik Hornsby in the second half and played much better than Hornsby did. He had 92 yards and a touchdown. KJ Jefferson was out this week with an injury. I think he's been out for a couple weeks. That's why Malik Hornsby was starting. I definitely think if KJ Jefferson was ready and back and good enough to play, Arkansas would have definitely scored more and probably won, but maybe not because of true freshman linebacker Harold Perkins. Harold Perkins definitely gets the MVP. He was fantastic. Fantastic player. Absolutely changed the outcome of this game. Arkansas on their last drive was fighting to score a touchdown and win it. But basically Harold Perkins just stopped Arkansas on his own. He just totally shut them down. He had 8 tackles, 4 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles, and a lot of quarterback pressures. Definitely MVP of the game. I think he did force the fumble on Arkansas's last drive, so he literally changed the outcome of the game. So LSU 13-10 was the final. LSU improved the record to 8-2, and they got their spot in the SEC championship game. So on to Texas versus TCU.
So Texas was leading again, leads the series against TCU 64-27. Texas was a 7.5 point favorite at home, and the and Texas Stadium was packed. It was the second biggest capacity in their history of that stadium, and the over under was 66. So as soon like the I thought this was going to be a shootout. Almost everybody thought this would be a shootout with both of these offenses going Big 12 like style 50s, But both of them went to a bumpy start. No one was converting third downs for both of their first couple first downs, and the first down was off of a penalty on Texas, which gave TCU a first down, and TCU didn't really move the ball after that anyway. And one of the big reasons I thought this would be a huge like 55-52 game was because of Bijan Robinson and Kendra Miller. Bijan Robinson had 33 rushing yards in the first half, and he was a potential Heisman contender. I don't really think he is. I don't think he is, but anyway, he was just getting stuffed, and there was a 4th and 1, and they went to a wildcat. Like Texas went to wildcat, and Bijan Robinson got half a yard. So they were containing him well. Same for Texas. Besides one play that probably like just switched the momentum, Kendra Miller broke off like at the start of the second half. Kendra Miller breaks open for a 75-yard touchdown run to make TCU go up 10-0 against Texas. And that was like the first big play, first actual like bit more than 15-yard gain because everyone was dropping passes, no one was converting third downs, quarterbacks kept getting sacked. And like, can you pull up how many sacks there were in that game? Because I felt like there were at least a bunch of rushes and like throwaways. And Texas shows their first sign of life on defense when they got a field goal. Wait, yeah, they when they got no, not on defense, on offense when they went down the field to like the 30 on the following drive after TCU scored and made it 10-3 to bring it back to a one possession game. But TCU stretches the lead again after and makes it 17-3 after a huge busted coverage where Duggan just throws it up high and no one was guarding. There's just a TCU player sitting in the end zone, no one around for 15 yards. And only touchdown for Texas in that game was a scoop and score off of a mishandled snap by TCU, and it was Ryan back for like 40 yards.
Texas had 4 sacks and TCU had 2.
Okay, so that's still, well, I even felt that it was more probably just a bunch of like hurries and like they threw it away. But yeah, not exactly what I expected, not exactly what a bunch of people expected. The announcers even talking about how everyone thought final drive, like the whoever had it last would win the game. Okay, so now let's move on to Texas A&M versus Auburn.
Man, I don't even want to talk about this game. Auburn managed to sell out the stadium when 2, 3, and 6 teams were playing. Just absolutely ridiculous. And true freshman quarterback Connor Weigman cannot play at a on the road. Basically, couldn't play versus South Carolina. Didn't really show up versus Auburn. Only completed 14 passes. Now I'm gonna leave. That was definitely on the receivers too. Um, Receiver Moose Muhammad was benched for the whole game because he wore a sleeve and the coaches told him he couldn't wear a sleeve. He shouldn't do that. It makes it more likely for him to fumble in the cold weather. Didn't listen, mouthed off a little bit. So yeah, benched for the whole game, star receiver. And Evan Stewart, our other really fantastic receiver, true freshman. Um, he had 3 catches for 8 yards before 3 catches for 9 yards. My bad, my bad. Before he got hurt and he had to leave the game. Man, this is just embarrassing. Also, star running back Devon A-Chain, he was out. He was wearing a boot, so our rush game was not very good. 94 yards with the second and third string running backs. Amari Daniels and Levon Moss are those running backs. Daniels got most of the carries. He had 11. Moss had 5. Just not great. Daniels did have a 7.5 as his rushing average, and we totally should have given him the ball a lot more because Connor Weigman, he just couldn't do it. 14 for 36. Just ridiculous. The defense played really well. They had 3 turnovers, I think. It should have been 4 because Auburn, it was a totally legit fumble in like the fourth quarter, out caught by the defense. Auburn just couldn't hold on to the ball basically the whole game. There were a lot of fumbles. Most of them were recovered by Auburn, but man, it was a totally legit fumble. Auburn hurried up, snapped the ball, and no one stopped to even think about it. Just absolutely crazy. The run game for Auburn was absurd, as are all run games when you play Texas A&M. 270 rushing yards by Auburn, only 6 completed passes for 60 yards. We knew they were going to run the ball on every single play, and we just can't defend it. Just absolutely ridiculous. Really embarrassing. Just, this is a terrible game. I A&M is 3-7. They're not going bowling. Nick Constantino, though, future Right Guy Award winner, I'm calling it. He had 9 punts. Definitely got his reps in. He has 2,200 punting yards this season, I believe. And I would guess that I don't know. I'm not confirming this, but I would guess that's more than all 3 of our quarterbacks combined this season. 2,200 yards. So that's really all I have to say about A&M Auburn. Just really disappointing. Auburn was favored by 1.5, and the over/under was 48.5. So definitely the under. I don't think anyone really expected the over. Just there's no offense by A&M whole season. Neither team had won since September 24th. So yeah. Now A&M's the worst team in the SEC because Vanderbilt won. We'll talk about that later.
In the entire CC or just the West?
The entire SEC. So yeah, only one conference win versus Auburn because of the boink off the top of the upright. So yeah, really all I have to say. Just disappointing. So I guess I'll talk about the Ole Miss Alabama game, which locked LSU into the conference championship. Ole Miss, Ole Miss had it. They were going for it. They were up 10-0. They knew what they were doing. It was packed. They thought they were going to give Alabama their second loss in a row. Alabama lost to LSU last weekend. And they were 7-2 going into the game. They walked out victorious. Ole Miss blew their 10-point lead. It was a 17-14 game at half. There were red zone struggles throughout the game. Alabama had a worse red zone rank than UConn. Ole Miss is 66th, so better. Bama's was 38th. Alabama just hasn't really improved. They've had mostly the same issues they've had throughout the season. There's not a lot of communication or really discipline throughout the team. They're just not playing as older Alabama teams have from the I don't know, the teens, like the
Yeah.
2014, 2016, through those years. I guess 2020 was really good season for Alabama. They played well. But last year and this year they just haven't looked as Alabama has before. They've looked like they've struggled, and really they have. They're not blowing out every team like Ohio State does, 50-10, as they used to. I think they did. I don't know. I'm just making that up. Honestly, just good win for Bama, I guess. They beat a top 15 team, and they only have 2 losses on the season. Good for them. All right, we're gonna mention Purdue versus Illinois rivalry game.
Okay, so Purdue versus Illinois, like you said, rivalry. This was definitely bigger than usual because usually Illinois just sucks and Purdue's average. Purdue's been on the up. Illinois is having a good year for once. And the reason this is so big is because whoever wins this takes the lead for the Big Ten West and probably will make it to the Big Ten championship game. And the Big Ten really needs to remove divisions because this is depressing that Purdue is probably going to be playing Michigan or Ohio State. And so Illinois was 4-2 and now it's 4-3 in the Big Ten, and was Purdue is was 3-3 in the Big Ten and is now 4-3, and Purdue now has the tiebreaker against Illinois, which makes them be in the lead. Illinois started with a lead 14-0, and Purdue had no answer in the first quarter. And in the second quarter, Purdue started to pick it up and scored 14 points in the second quarter, unanswered, and made it 14-14 at half with momentum on their side. And Purdue was able to outscore Illinois, beating them 31-24 and taking the lead in the Big Ten West, and probably will be facing one of the top dogs, one of the actually good teams in the Big Ten,
Like Maryland.
like Ohio State, Michigan. Illinois lost to Michigan State, who's 2-4 in the Big Ten. So yeah. Now let's move on to Vandy.
So if you haven't already heard, which maybe you have, maybe you haven't, because it's Vanderbilt. No one really pays attention to Vanderbilt football. But Vanderbilt pulled an upset. Now they don't ever win, so it's very rare that you hear a Vanderbilt upset in the same sentence. But Vanderbilt beat number 25 Kentucky in in-conference game. They broke a 26-game SEC losing streak. It's the third longest SEC losing streak ever, I think. Um, their first SEC win in 3 years. Really big win for Vanderbilt. They're looking a lot better than Vanderbilt teams in the past. Now they have like 4 wins, but they're not last in the SEC. So, I mean, they beat a conference opponent. They're not really they're bad. They're bad. I'm not even gonna say they're good. They're still bad. Kentucky's just absolutely screwed up, and they lost to Vanderbilt. You can't do that. Also wanted to mention UConn, University of Connecticut football is bowl eligible. That's right. UConn is bowl eligible. You haven't heard that in
Not Texas
7 years.
A&M. Not Texas A&M.
Not Texas A&M. Texas A&M is not bowl eligible, but UConn is after for the first time in 7 years. They beat a ranked Liberty team. So
Who beat Arkansas?
and Liberty beat Arkansas. So technically, UConn is better than Arkansas, right?
And UConn is technically probably better than Texas A&M
I
because
mean, you really have to think about that. I'm not gonna say that right here. Um, yeah, they beat a ranked team. I'm sure that was a really long streak they broke. Liberty was ranked like 19 or something. They were having a good season. They have 8 wins. They'll definitely go to a bowl game. Maybe they'll play each other in a bowl game. Who knows? But UConn is eligible for a bowl game. Go check out. I posted a little clip at the end of the UConn game and the end of the Vanderbilt game on the YouTube channel that this is on. That Sports Kid. Go watch those. Make sure to like this video and subscribe because this is the end of the episode, and you definitely want to hear more of this. Maybe you do. If you do subscribe, if you don't, I don't know. Don't.
we'll have uploads every week.
Yeah, new episodes every week. Even during the off season, we're gonna try to do it. There might not be anything to talk about, but we're gonna try. We're gonna give it our best. So every week, another episode. But until next week, see ya.